How do you know whether?
Hey, Doug. Good morning. Good afternoon. I'm really good afternoon. How you
Yeah,
doing?
good.
Yeah.
Good.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Today is Wednesday. Today is the what is it?
19th?
The
No,
15th. Today is the
15th.
15th. It's Wednesday the 15th.
I got 19th on my mind.
You got 19th on your mind.
That's this coming Sunday.
Yeah.
With our candlelight service.
You're doing candlelight this
Yeah,
Sunday.
yeah.
We're excited about that.
It's the 19th. I mean, it's a beautiful service. We've done it before. It's always a little bit different, but there's a lot of music. There's a lot of talk about what Christmas means, where it came from, and all that kind of stuff. And it's a beautiful time just to kind of remember the story, and then the story plus music and things. It's a nice time.
Do you start preparing for your talk really? Like today is Wednesday and
Yeah.
your talk is on Sunday. You start preparing now, or you wait? You just kind of get a message the day of and you just go with it, or you? I'm sure you're a pretty prepared guy, so I'm sure you
Well, let me put it this way. When I was a full-time minister, I was usually thinking about the talk all week. And then I always had an intention of writing it on Friday, but that usually didn't happen, because there was other things going on. And then I would get up Saturday morning and I would write it out, And oftentimes that would go to 11 o'clock, midnight or so. Then I'd get up the next morning, maybe 6 or so. And it was a little bit of a trying experience. Well, these days, I don't speak every week. I speak periodically. And so what I've been able to do is write those talks well ahead of time.
Wow. Yeah.
And that, trust me, it works a lot better.
Yeah, I'm sure.
There was one minister out there by the name of Jim Rosemergy, and Jim Rosemergy's a longtime Unity minister, very prolific, has written a lot of books. As a matter of fact, at Canuga, he was our guest speaker.
I remember that.
This last Canuga. And what he always would do is he was 1 week ahead of time. 1 week.
Wow.
So
that's probably pretty good for a speaker, a minister.
well, that's great.
Right.
If you can do it. And I asked him about that one time. I said, why are you so far ahead of time? Because I was a little more spontaneous. What's up now?
Right. What's going on? Yeah.
That sort of thing. And he basically said, well, when you're in ministry and you're coming up to Sunday, sometimes all of a sudden you'll get a phone call. You need to go visit somebody in the hospital. Maybe a funeral came up. Something will disrupt that. And on Sunday morning, you want to be your best. You want to be prepared. So if you're a week ahead of time, typically that
you got something in there.
Yeah. So what I've been able to do lately, for example, on this candlelight service, is we've done that. I mean, I've done that 12, 13 times.
Yeah, that's probably a traditional kind of.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
The message may be a little different.
Right. You tweak it.
Yeah.
Okay. You take a look at what you said last year, and you said, well, I'm going to do something different, or you get another thought. But typically, the format of it, the songs, a lot of it follows the same pattern. So that makes it a little bit easier. And I've got the talk prepared now, and it's sitting up on my desk. And one of the reasons, especially for this service, is that there's a lot of songs in it. So I want to get that stuff off to Landis as soon as possible, so he doesn't get it late on Friday.
Right.
And then all of a sudden he's got to put a whole bunch of songs together, and then he's stressed. And then comes Sunday morning and everybody's a little wired, So come Sunday morning, you want to feel relaxed.
You want to feel relaxed.
Yeah. And you want to be able to step up to the microphone or the keyboard or whatever, just with a really good feeling.
Yeah.
And kind of knowing what you're going to do.
Yeah.
It's okay to follow a script. If to get the words right. I've never been able to do a whole service extemporaneously. There are some who do that.
Right. John was pretty good. It seemed like he was pretty good with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was.
Yeah. But look, it's what is it? Beginning to look a lot like Christmas.
Yeah.
I mean, we got the tree in the background. Last week we had a little bath. What do we have? We had like a basket.
It was a basket.
Yeah.
Last week we were in our dining room.
Yeah.
And we had a
not our dining room.
My dining room.
Right?
Make it clear. Penny's in my dining room. Yeah. Okay.
We were talking about bow ties earlier today, so we just I don't know.
That's another story.
That's
another story.
But Penny and Doug's dining room.
That's right. So we had a Christmas basket there with some lights on it and some other things, and so. Between then and now, we put up the Christmas tree.
Yeah.
Penny and I put up the Christmas tree.
Really nice, Doug. Really nice. I really like it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's good.
Yeah.
It's and it's it's an artificial tree, but it's the thought, that sort of thing.
Is there any significance? I mean, to that whole thing, the artificial thing. I mean, I'm just asking because I know for me, first of all, I didn't put up a tree this year.
Okay.
But I do. When I do put up a tree, I usually put up an artificial tree myself. And the reason I do that is because I'm from New York, and when I'm in New York and when I'm like hanging out after Christmas and I'm walking down the street, I see a whole bunch of dead Christmas trees. Well, they're not dead; they're still alive. The day after Christmas,
right?
And that tends to kind of get to me,
right?
So I just made a promise to myself that I don't want to be a part of that. Not to say it's bad. But I just don't feel good about leaving a tree out there cut up just to put lights on them. So that's just me. I mean, is there a significance for you, or you just kind of?
Well, when I was growing up, they didn't have artificial trees back then.
Okay,
or
right. That makes
did,
sense. That makes sense.
This is back in the Stone Age.
Yeah, you had to cut down a tree.
Right. Or we'd go to the Christmas tree lot,
right.
and typically when I was a kid,
they didn't have artificial trees back then.
And this was in the 50s.
Right.
Okay, we went to the lot that they were still growing.
Right.
Okay, and you show up and they'd give you a saw and they'd say, okay, go pick the one you want, cut it down, put it up on the tree, and and there's snow all over the place. But it was fun.
It was fun.
I mean, I'm 8 years old or whatever it was. And between me and my dad and my brother, we'd cut down, we'd find the tree. And, our mother would come along and she'd say, well, I want that one.
All she had to do was pick. She had to pick her. That was it. But you guys had to go and...
Yeah, and of course we'd take one look at the tree and say, we need a chainsaw. How are you going to get that? And we always...
But you managed.
Well, the thing was, our trees when I was growing up, they were huge. I mean, they would fill a whole quarter, that sort of thing. It was big. And what my dad used to do is he'd take a drill and he would, because sometimes a pretty good size real Christmas tree doesn't look perfect.
Right.
Okay,
So
it's got blank spots.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
so what he would do is he'd get some extra limbs and he'd drill holes and he'd put limbs in it, and it was quite an operation. And then we'd have guy wires going to the to the walls or a window or something so that it didn't fall down.
Yeah.
We had a cat. What
Cats
that's
can,
they get up there, they start playing with the Christmas balls, and then it's a mess. But anyways, we had a great time, and the tree would usually stay up for maybe a week after Christmas, at least through New Year's, and then it would find its way to the street. But
it makes sense now. I
think-
never thought about that.
I
never
think-
thought about the whole. People didn't have artificial trees back then. I mean,
That's right.
I have the the privilege
Right.
of being able to go and get an artificial tree.
Right.
But back then, in the 1800s, when you were born,
That's right. It's 1800s AD, by the way.
But yeah, that makes sense. I understand.
So, and I think for me, that you can take it down, you can put it away. You just bring it out the next year, and you set it up, and
Just shake it, and the lights come on.
Yeah.
They have those now too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you can just shake it out. The lights are already on there. And
I'll be darned.
Just go lights up. Yeah.
Well, this one, we bought this, gosh, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, 12 years ago, something like that. And there's one string of lights that's out. Okay, so. It may be on its last legs, but they're easy
It
to
doesn't
put.
look like it's on its last legs, Doug. I'm sure you have it all mapped out.
Well,
I'm sure.
all I can tell you, the engineer, I can tell you that there's one bulb that's out, which takes out a string of it. But anyways,
Yeah.
So anyways, I think the artificial tree is just a little more convenient for us, and it gets the idea across.
Yeah.
Just a little easier to do.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think about? We got a chance to watch last week Howard Caesar's service on the 4 P's of Christmas.
3 Ps.
3 P's.
3 Ps.
Peace, power, and perspective.
Yeah. I really liked Howard's talk, and there was one part of it that particularly stuck with me, and he was talking about perspective.
That stuck with me too.
Yeah. And he used a funny story, and he kind of talked about it before he told it, and he said, "I'm not sure that this is totally appropriate, but here it goes anyways."
Yeah.
And one of the things that they used to tell us in ministerial school, and what Jesus did a lot, okay, you can talk about the principle, okay, you can, but if you then tell a story behind it, people will remember the story well after they've forgotten the principle, but they'll remember the story. So he told a story, and if for some of you who weren't able to see that broadcast, basically what he said was there was a man who had 3 sons, and throughout the years they never went to church. There was a nice church in town, and the minister had come several times to try to get him to come to church, but they never did. Until one day,
I remember.
one of the sons was out in the woods and got bitten by a rattlesnake. Okay,
story,
and apparently he was at death's door. Okay, when all else is lost, right? So they contact the minister, and the minister comes to say a prayer or do what ministers do, because he's in a dire situation.
Yeah.
And again, this was all about perspective, okay? And so the minister says a prayer, but he didn't say a prayer for healing for the son.
Yeah.
What he did was, thank you, God, for the rattlesnake, because if it wasn't for the rattlesnake, you guys would have never
called me,
and never had the realization to come to church. And then the minister goes on and says, and we pray for rattlesnakes for the other 2 sons,
exactly,
and a big one for the father, that sort of thing. And I remember the story, and over the what is it, YouTube? How does this go out?
Over Facebook.
And there were comments.
Yeah, it was comments
that came in, and one of the comments that came in was something to the tune of, "And there are many kinds of rattlesnakes."
That was my son.
Oh, was it?
Yes, my son that wrote that. Yeah.
What did he say?
He wrote exactly that.
Many kinds of rattlesnakes.
Yeah, there's really types of
Yeah. And that got me to thinking, which is really what a minister wants to do with his talk, is to allow you to take what he has said and then continue it and think about it and that sort of thing. And what came up for me was, how many times in our lives has something bad happened that really turned out to be a blessing in disguise?
Wow.
How does God get our attention and then redirect us to something maybe a little more positive? Now nobody would.
It looks like a disaster when it's happening, but it turns out to be something really great.
Yeah. And I can tell you that I've had quite a few of those in my life where I'm going along fat, dumb, and happy in one direction, and boom, you need to be over here. Something happens. Years ago, we were out in California, and a minister of the church we were attending at the time called it the cosmic 2x4. In other words, pow! Now that I've got your attention,
right?
This is what you need to be doing.
Yeah.
And I've had a number of those stories, and I'll just tell you one. Again, we were out in California, and we had been there before. There was a Unity Church there, and I went there, and I didn't particularly connect with it for whatever reason, okay? And decided not to go. So much later, I had taken up whitewater kayaking, and I was out on the rivers on Sundays and up in the Sierras and just doing all kinds of things. But little did I know that a new minister had come to town. Okay, he and his wife, and the church had moved from a little house, okay, over to a pretty nice sanctuary. It had grown quite a bit, and they're bringing in the new minister and that sort of thing. And so one day out on the river, I dislocate my shoulder.
Wow.
And it was kind of a nasty situation. I won't go into the details, but I had to have surgery and things. And several weeks later, I'm sitting at home with, my arm in a sling.
A sling, yeah.
And I'm saying to myself, this is, I think, a Saturday. What am I going to do tomorrow? And I'm thinking, well, I might go out and cut the bushes. We had a nice, manicured backyard type of thing. And then a thought came, why don't you go to church? No, I don't want to go to church. I think I'll go hiking in the Sierras. Why don't you go to church? No, I don't want to go to church. I'll tell you what, I'm going to go over to the coast and go to Laguna Seca because they're having great races over there. Why don't you go to church? And along about that time, this why don't you go to church changed a little bit. And the thought was, there are many ways to get you into that church. Whoa, dude!
Now, do you want to go this way, or do you?
There's the rattle. This is the rattlesnake, and there was the guidance, and you had those two things. You had something that looked bad, okay, and then you had another voice that came in and said, "Why don't you do this?" Just like the rattlesnake story. And I've had a number of those. And to make a long story short, I decided that really got my attention. So we had phone books back in those days.
Phone books, yeah.
So
Unity.
That's exactly what I did. I looked it up, and of course, in the phone book was not only the name but the address, and the phone number, that sort of thing. So I looked up the address, and we found the thing, and I went the next Sunday, and life was never never the same.
And it was a new minister.
It was a new minister, and it was a new surrounding, and I sat down and I listened to him and his, just the music of that day, the meditation that he did. I mean, it just really took you inside, and then his message it just opened me up like a can opener.
Wow.
And I looked at Penny. And now, we had been to many Unity churches prior to that. And if I was going to go to a church, it would probably be a Unity church. But in that particular case, it was, man, this is
it.
I want what that guy's got, that sort of thing. And it was just a beautiful experience. And like I said, that minister is the reason that I went into ministry.
Wow. And the broken arm.
Yeah.
That got you in,
yeah. And there have been many situations after that, but you don't want to curse the rattlesnake, okay, or the cosmic 2x4, because oftentimes as you step back from that, there will be another voice. It might not be internal. It might be somebody else. It might be some other information you get. It could be many things. But there will be a different route to go. And oftentimes, at least for me anyways, those things have been remarkable in my life. So anyways, a rattlesnake. Hey, by the way, with rattlesnakes.
I think he gave another perspective about the couple that traveled to New York, and they had a bad, they had heard bad things about New York. They heard that New York was crime infested, and there was a lot of, it was just filthy, dirty.
Right.
And some tour guide decided to take them up to the highest point in New York where they could
as
see
soon as they came there.
Right,
as soon as they got there. Yeah.
I guess that was just pretty much to change their perspective.
Yeah.
Change their whole perspective. And that view that they got of New York stayed with them during their whole trip. And although they may have, I'm not sure, but I'm sure they ran into some negative situations probably, but their perspective was high. It was
always coming from the high point,
place,
from the highest perspective. Yeah. I remember that story.
I mean, I'm always, I try my best to look at that, when I'm dealing with situations in life. Okay, what is trying to come from this? What am I supposed to learn from this situation?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And that tends to make things better.
Yeah.
Because if you look at it for what it is, sometimes or what you think it is. Because what I think it is, in my perspective, sometimes that perspective can be the first default perspective is negative.
Well, I'll give you an example. I used to run manufacturing plants. Okay, so I'm the plant manager, general manager, whatever you want. I'm the
top dog.
Yeah. I'm the office that nobody wants to get called into.
Right.
Okay, that sort of thing. And the way that I always looked at it is, what's the best for the entire organization? You know, are there any systems and procedures we need to change over here? And once you got systems and procedures and people in the right place and things like that, you would oftentimes look for things that weren't going so well. You know, where's the chink in the armor? You know, sort of thing. And when you take a look at that, it's not so much about blaming who's wrong, okay? It's about, why did this occur? Let's find what they used to call root cause, and then correct the cause, and then you've corrected the problem and everything else. So from that perspective, when something wasn't going quite right, I would usually go in and say, all right, you know, how do we do something better? You know, coming from the high point, okay? Yeah. But if you talk to the guys who are actually out crabbing and complaining and going on, and nothing's ever right, and that guy doesn't know what he's doing, and blah, 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 blah. And again, perspective. You've got to come from the high place. And that goes for churches too. I you know, having been a minister for a while and still having that in the blood, when I take a look at, you know, things that aren't going well, even within a church, okay, because a church is an organization. People are people.
Yes, they
are. Then yes, they are, right?
Are, yeah.
You know, how do we bring the Christ principle into this? How do we, you know, what would Jesus do? How do we, that sort of thing. Whereas if you oftentimes talk with some of the parishioners, you know, that sort of thing.
Before we have our board meeting, we set the tone by reading a statement of being.
Yes.
And that statement of being, I mean, sometimes I'm preparing for the meeting, and I'm in my mind I'm going to go in hard.
Right.
But when I read the statement of being, which is a statement that kind of keeps me in a peaceful, loving, caring place. Right. By the time we finish reading that statement of being, all of that energy that I have, that sometimes, I don't want to say negative energy, but all that high energy that may lead to conflict. Right,
right. Know? Or something you wish you
didn't say. It dissipates.
Yeah.
You know, and
it does.
Yeah, and so it's important to kind of prepare yourself
and that's
keep yourself at a higher. And that takes work. That's work.
Yeah, it does.
It's work.
It takes. What do I want to say?
Because like you said, people want to always kind of be down. Even in relationships, it's like, okay, what is the solution to this? We're having a problem here. What is the solution?
That's right.
I remember being at a job, and the first time I heard, what is the solution? I was in a board meeting complaining, and the executive director of the company said, so Shannon, what's how can we fix this?
Right.
And I just kept complaining, and she said, well, Shannon, how can we fix it?
Right.
And she said it 3 times, and I got it. I got it after the 3rd time. Wow. I felt very negative, first of all. I didn't feel negative when I was saying it, but when she said it the 3rd time, I thought, wow, I'm really negative here. Yeah. You know, and she kind of just changed me from that point.
And if we take a look at the dynamics of that, you needed to get that out before you could find something higher. Okay. I can tell you, in running the businesses that I did, I would come in, and I can still remember, and I often tell this story. There was a particular problem we were talking about. Okay, got everybody together. There must have been 12 people in the room, and I said, okay, this is the issue. How do we get from where we are to this other level? And the crabbing and complaining and the bitching and you don't know what you're talking about, and it's never going to change, and blaming everybody, and all this pus and venom came out, all this negative energy.
Sound like last night at my house. But we got to a higher ground, though.
There we go. And so anyways, this went on for a while, but I knew
we're going to get to that higher. You know it.
You got to get the old stuff out.
You got to get it out.
All right. So
we got to go through the exit. What is that? We got to go through the what is that? The Exodus?
Yeah. I know what you're talking
What am I
about.
talking about, Doug? We have to go through that storm in order to get to
Right.
the mountaintop. You know,
That's
we have
right.
to, I'm sorry.
A great beginning always doesn't start with a.
A great beginning.
No, it starts with a great ending.
Right.
You know, which
Yeah.
can somebody be kind of
Depressing.
traumatic.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know. Well, there's an old saying. Basically, when one door closes, another opens, but it's hell in the hallway.
It's held the whole way. Yeah.
So, anyways, just to get back to that story, I knew that all that stuff needed to come out. So there was a point in time when I got up. You know, again, I was moderating the thing, and I said, you know, so I guess you guys really want to stay where you're at, and you don't want to change anything, and you want to continue crabbing and complaining. Is that what I'm hearing? Because if that's what I'm hearing, and that's the way you want to be, I'm in the wrong place.
Right.
Because I don't want to be there.
Right.
Okay.
That was hardcore.
And
they looked at you like, who,
exactly.
Yeah,
Who the hell are you?
Yeah.
You know, that sort of. But by that time, everybody
All the energy was
it had gone out. Okay, and I looked at him and I said, Does anybody have an idea of how we can go from here to here? It was about safety.
My God.
And then one guy
That is
raised
just
his
relieving.
hand.
That's just relieving to hear that.
There was one guy, and it was the guy that you would never think anything good would come from, right? But he raised his hand, and he had an idea. And I said, great, that's a good idea. And I wrote it on the board. And then another hand went up. And then I couldn't write fast enough, okay? And once the board was filled, I looked at everybody, and I said, now, there's no pride of authorship here,
Right.
okay? Which of these ideas is, number one, the easiest to implement, and number two, has the biggest bang for the buck? Okay, which one of these has both of those characteristics, one or two? And some discussion, we raced this one, and finally drew a big circle around this one. I said, okay, we're going to try that. And I can tell you from that time forward, the negative energy was gone. The positive vision was there, and they had a methodology. In other words, a voice had spoken that said, this is the way to go. It may not be from the person or the place that you thought the voice was come from, okay? But there it was. And we all went out, and I can tell you, it was almost like a miracle.
Yeah.
I mean,
And the feelings that are exhibited after that work takes place. is amazing.
Exactly.
It's like, hey,
It was
so
a
are we gonna-
team.
It's like, yeah, you're going, but you leave like, hey, you're going to go get something to eat, or you want to,
Right.
Because you free yourself from all that stuff.
Yeah. And so the point is, you got to get it out, okay? And then you've got to at least leave a little room for a different perspective. So I'm always going to remember that Howard Caesar rattlesnake.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And by the
being
way,
patient in the getting it out.
What's
You
that?
have to be patient while it's coming out. You have to be patient. You have to allow that process to happen.
Yes.
That requires someone that has experience also, because if you don't know that, you'll stop it. You'll try to. Well, I've not knowing what that was back in the day.
Right.
I would no, we're not. You know, I would kind of stop that. But today, I understand that needs to happen in order for us to get to the mountaintop. Yeah.
And there are some people who never get there.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I can tell you, we had one guy in one department who had achieved a leadership position, always negative. We put him in another department, always negative.
Yeah.
Put him in another department, always negative.
Yeah.
There are some people who don't change, but my experience is most of the time, if you follow that process and listen to people and that sort of thing, and then offer some ideas, oftentimes I would say 80-90% of the people just come right around and do real well.
Yeah. Before we end, Doug, let's talk a little bit about Christmas. Let's talk a little bit about what this means. Like, is it the Christ presence within? What is, you know, I know unity kind of follows that philosophy.
Right.
Not so much the philosophy of definitely. You tell me. I don't want to say what I don't know for sure.
Okay.
That's why you're here. You're the specialist in this stuff, right?
Well,
I'm here to ask the questions.
The idea behind Christmas is the birth of the Christ presence within. Okay, it's something that, according to the scriptures, and that you know, obviously Jesus was born, and he found that within himself, and brought it forth for everybody. And he said simply, these things that I do, you can do also.
Right.
These things and greater things shall you do. If you believe and you follow the things that we're talking about. And so what unity is all about is just simply finding that Christ presence within. And Christmas time is a time to celebrate the birth of the Christ presence that came and was demonstrated on earth, and to find and celebrate that presence within ourselves.
Wow.
That's the whole idea, because every one of us has that spark of divinity. So how do we, just like the stories we've just told, how do we find it? How do we release the negative stuff, and how do we focus on the on the positive? And Christmas time with the songs that we have, with the messages that we have, with the giving that's done, it's a perfect way. It's a perfect channel. It's a perfect medium, I guess,
to practice those principles.
To practice those things.
I think there's a couple of wars that have taken place where during Christmas time they decide we're not going to fight.
It's called Bella Woods.
Okay, because I was a military guy, so I remember some history. Yeah,
it was World War I, and essentially what happened, it was trench warfare, and it was
Jeopardy. It's Bella Woods.
Well, I remember it. Because there was a song by Garth Brooks. And he sang the song, and if that song was playing right now, I'd be a basket case. The tears would just be.
Wow.
And many of the candlelight services, and our candlelight service is coming up this Sunday, and we're not going to play this song, but the musician that night, I asked him to, and I went out and I bought the CD, and I said, "Here's the CD. You're an excellent musician, piano player. Play this song
excellent. Just
tonight,
keep it together, right?
At the candlelight service." And he didn't want to do it, but I talked him into it. Okay,
right.
And he did it that night, and I mean, it just melted everybody. But the story was darkest days of World War I, trench warfare, and it's Christmas Eve. And on the German side, they started singing in German, Silent Night. Wow. They started singing that. In the English and French on the other side heard it.
Wow.
Okay.
I'm getting chills.
And they started singing it. And then I'm trying to remember what happened. But I think it was on the English side. One guy stood up, took his rifle off, and walked into no man's land.
Wow.
And everybody thought, guy's nuts, he's going to get shot. But he didn't.
He didn't get shot.
One of the German guys got up, walked over, and they got close. And then one of them, and I don't remember which one it was, pulled out his wallet and showed him pictures of his family, the kids. And then I'm getting chills.
Yeah, you feel it, yeah.
And then what happened, other soldiers came out, and pretty soon they started playing soccer, having a game, and singing together, stuff like that. And now this wasn't the officers doing this. This was the rank and file, right? And it went on for a whole day. Christmas Day was like the whole thing, and then slowly after that, the officers came out and said, "Okay, Christmas over. Now let's get back to business.
Let's get back in our heads."
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what Howard talked about a couple on Sunday.
Exactly, Bella Woods. That's the. And by the way, for all of you listening out there, if you find the Garth Brooks song Bella Woods and play it, you will hear the full story to music. And if you're anything like me, there won't be a dry eye in the place. It's great.
No, that sounds really nice.
Yeah.
It really does.
Cool.
Well, you know what, Doug? I think before we end, we want to talk a little bit about your candlelight service, which is coming up. Did we mention that already in the beginning? I don't think we did.
Well, we did before the microphone wasn't on.
We definitely have the candlelight service coming up this Sunday.
Sunday, the 19th.
The 19th, this Sunday at Red Bank Community Center.
Yep.
And we're going to get there a little early ourselves and set up. But we welcome any viewer that's online now that would like to come out and that's here in Chattanooga. Come out and join us for that candlelight service, and we're gonna sing Silent Night. We're gonna have we're gonna have our musician there. He's gonna play some good music, and we're gonna have a good message from you.
Yeah, basically what it is we follow the Advent wreath, okay, and we talk about the meaning of the candles, and then there's a song associated with each one. So there's a lot of there's a lot of singing, and the meaning of Christmas, the meaning of the Advent candles, and then we end up with a circle of lighted candles when we sing Silent Night. It's a beautiful service.
Yeah, I've been to
beautiful
a candle
service.
before. And then we're going to also be taking donations for our homeless outreach program. So if anybody wants to bring in any non-perishable items, we welcome you to do that. And then we're going to have you back again on the 9th, I think January 9th, for our Burning Bowl ceremony that we do. I like that ceremony also. So
yeah, there's the Burning Bowl, and there's also a White Stone service.
White Stone service, yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah.
And
we got a lot of stuff coming up.
Yeah.
And all this stuff is practical Christianity. This stuff is practical.
Well, it is, and it's not just tradition and ritual for ritual's sake. There's a lot of meaning behind it.
We're setting intention to some extent. We're letting stuff go, and we're setting our intentions for the new year.
Right.
To some extent.
Yeah.
So,
It's good stuff.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think we've talked a lot today. I'm not sure how long we've talked, but I think we've talked for quite a long time. I just want to thank everybody for coming out.
Yeah.
If you have any questions for Doug, shoot us a text message, not a text message, shoot us a message in our in the chat, and we'll be sure to get that question back, get that question answered to you.
If we get anything like that, we've offered this, many times, but if we get a question like that, we'll just bring it straight to the podcast the next week, and we'll talk about that. Thank you for your questions and that sort of thing. So
yeah, I just want to thank you guys for coming out.
Let's do one thing. It's Christmas time.
Oh God, Doug is always coming up with this. I got red on already.
Yeah, and so
our hats on.
There we go.
Look at that. It's cool.
We just want to thank everybody for being here, and we'll see you Sunday.
See you Sunday. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Bye-bye.